Let's settle for the details. Now, the first batch of Ghanaians evacuated from Ukraine have arrived down in Ghana. The government says the 17 individuals, mostly students, who have arrived are part of many more to come. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration explains that Ghana is amongst the first African countries to evacuate its citizens from Ukraine. Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister Kweku Ampertrum Sapong, who was at the arrival terminal to welcome them, said 500 more Ghanaians have moved into safety and will be flown home later this week.
Welcome you, and we thank the Almighty God that He has been with you and seen you through and brought you home. And in the next couple of minutes or hours, you will reconcile and re-engage with your families. We have to thank your leaders who has worked with our officials at the various missions to make it possible for you to get here today. And the government is determined to continue to make sure that your colleagues who are still in transit to be evacuated will eventually be evacuated. Now, there is one important thing that we need to score. Information coming in indicates that Ghana is the first African country to have been able to evacuate some of their compatriots and some of their students. So at least, if not for anything at all, the government of Nana Akufo-Addo has scored the first. After this short engagement with you, and at about 10 o'clock, the Minister for Foreign Affairs will be meeting the parents of students who have been caught up in this unfortunate situation in Ukraine. Ghana on the side is doing its best to try to encourage Russia to stop the attack and the atrocities that they are meting out on the citizens of Ukraine. And we also want to go on record to thank the International Migration Organization for the support that they are giving. And we also want us all to remember our compatriots who have so far not been able to be evacuated. As at this morning, we understand there are about 500 of our compatriots who've managed to cross from Ukraine to the other neighboring countries, especially Poland, Romania, Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia, and just a couple of minutes ago, we understand some of your compatriots are Sumi. Hopefully, will be able to cross over to Russian territory itself. The government has laid plans to evacuate every student or every Ghanaian who is prepared and ready to come home. We have liaised very well with Qatar Airways and Turkish Airlines, and they have agreed that any Ghanaian who has crossed to any of these countries where they do fly will be flown home within the next couple of days. It is very important that we all do remember them in our prayers, that the good Lord will deliver them safely into a safe shelter and eventually back home to Ghana.
One of the students thanked the government for the efforts made so far.
I've studied for 5 years in Ukraine, and this is quite unfortunate we have to come home. But I want to first of all thank the Almighty God, also thank the government of Ghana, thank the various ambassadors, thank the ministry, and also reassure parents that their children will be back home. Siblings should be calm, friends should be calm. The government is doing its possible best to make us all come back home. For the meantime, we want to say thank you and we appreciate whatever has been done for us.
President Akufo-Addo has justified the need for Parliament to pass the electronic transaction bill. describing it as an innovative fiscal measure to expand the country's tax base. According to him, the country cannot continue to rely on foreign aid and grants in the wake of the growing debt burden. This is the first time the president has spoken about the controversial levy, delivering the keynote address at the National Labour Conference at the Kwewu Nkwatia in the eastern region. The president noted that to wean the country of aid, there is the need to expand the tax base to include the working class.
We have to make concerted efforts as partners to hasten our recovery from COVID-19 by finding intelligent ways of bringing everyone on board to contribute their quota, no matter how small. Government, on its part, is implementing a policy of cutting the budgets of ministries, departments, and agencies by 20% this year as its contribution to measures to ensure fiscal consolidation. Ghana's tax to GDP ratio of 12.2% compares unfavorably with our peers the world over. The average tax to GDP ratio in West Africa stands at 18%, and indeed, the recommended ratio for ECOWAS member states is a minimum of 20%. The average for OECD countries is 34%. There is an urgent need to enhance significantly our capacity for domestic revenue mobilization to realize our development potential, create opportunities for our vibrant and dynamic youth, and deliver improved livelihoods for our fellow citizens. We cannot continue to allow less than 10%, specifically 7.8%, i.e. 2.4 million people of the population, carry the direct tax burden of 30.8 million people. We must provide an opportunity for every Ghanaian to contribute towards nation building. The proposed E-levy is one such innovative fiscal measure which will help improve our tax to GDP ratio on an equitable basis.
Speaking on the way forward for the revival of the broke Ghanaian economy, Professor Atuguba admonished Ghanaians to support the passage of the controversial E-levy.
Collapse of the economy and a return to the stranglehold of the IFIs. We have no choice but to pass it. As someone has noted, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo will go down in history as, quote, the president of public debt, or, quote, the president of austerity, or maybe both. E-levy is the part of the presidency of austerity. The starting point for successfully passing the E-levy bill is for government to stop lying to us, the citizenry. Come clean. Confess that you had thought the job of managing the economy was simple, but that you now know better. Abate the arrogance and high-handedness. Ask the people of Ghana for forgiveness, and pray the people of Ghana that we have limited options right now. We either allow the economy to collapse and we all suffer and get back into the grips of the neo-colonial IFIs, or we use the E-levy to prevent economic recession and depression. Ghanaians are smart and empathetic.
The Ghana Employers Association is of the view that the deepening lack of trust is partly responsible for the labor agitations in the country. Secretary General of Trade Union Congress, Dr. Anthony Yauba, lamented the poor working conditions of Ghanaians attributable to the prevailable economic conditions. We'll bring you more of that story. Let's do some more stories now, and we are on to our living standard series. And this time, Mamiesi went into the Troskis, relocating to newly developing sites where rent is cheap, Cutting down on classes, limiting visits to the hair salon are some actions that some Ghanaians have adopted to cushion themselves against the rising cost of transportation. In today's episode of the Living Standard series, Mamiesi spent a day in Trotro and reports that Ghanaians are feeling the pinch.
First, when I'm spending like 100 cedis within a week, I go Juma in and out. But right now, I think I'll spend like 150 cedis.
When fuel prices go up, everything else goes up. The daily commute from home to offices, schools and various destinations are now becoming expensive for many people. Ifua Boydua lives in Cassava. She waits for several minutes at the La Paz bus stop, eagerly waiting to hop into another vehicle to Achimota. Before Saturday, 25th February, she paid 5 cedis from Cassava to La Paz. But now she has to pay more, and this will hurt her monthly budget.
Initially, I used to spend 100 cedis a week on transportation, but now it has increased by 50 cedis. However, my salary remains the same. This will really affect my budget and how I even take care of myself.
Although she has not fully planned what to cut out from her budget, Efua off the cuff said she would visit the salon less often.
I now have to cut down on my salon visits and buying of clothes as well as shoes, and channel all those expenses into my transportation. It's really difficult.
She's not the only one who has been caught up in this economic squeeze. Vincent is a student at the University of Ghana. He has also been stuck at the La Paz junction for a while now. As a day student who lives beyond Soltium, he's contemplating cutting down on the number of times he attends classes due to the increase in fares.
Seriously, right now I do have lectures that's all the weeks. And if I'm supposed to go all the weeks, just imagine 16 cedis times 5. Even a month is more than 300 cedis. So just imagine, as a student, a part-time student, all the income that I get, I have to spend it on all my fares, without even getting something to even put in my pocket or something better. And that is really disturbing. And this morning I was even contemplating whether I should mix some of the lectures for studies for some job, or whether to go all the week, because I can't go through all the week.
To gauge the economic temperature of the country, I joined a trotro ride from La Paz to Circle.
I was sort of I say, price first and I am able to say, yeah, the same thing you know with him.
Mohammed Mansour is angry, and even before I engaged him, he gets a few things off his chest.
As for Ghana, the leaders must sit down and fix things. Otherwise, I don't know what will happen. I used to live at Fadama, but now I have to relocate to beat down the rent. But wherever you go, it doesn't get easier.
Problem be free baby na ebanesa. It is a young 24 body and control na yantina. ama ye ho atoye a ebe haga na fo ube suru anopa kura ukokura na uyem hyew.
With the anger out of the way, he gives me a breakdown of how the increase in transport fares will affect him.
Because I won't as the politics are not
In times like these, wives are really doing well living with husbands like us who are struggling. Leaders must try and fix things.
But other people have found a way around it. Mohammed Isaac, a mechanic, says due to an increase in the transportation fares and food prices, he held a meeting with his wife and they decided not to eat outside the home. So every morning, he packs his favorite banku to work.
At first, if you're having 5 cities, you can take banku and KK and fish. As at now 10 cities, you can buy fish 5 cities. They will tell you the KK one is 3 cities. Before you finish everything like 10 cities. But as at now, I've been giving my wife enough money to buy the stuffs down. So as small like this, I doesn't buy food outside, as you can see.
So this one, you they take from the house, they go job.
Yes.
You stop, they buy food from outside because it be expensive.
Sharp.
Naomi owns a convenience shop where she sells assorted drinks. However, she's unable to stock up because life has become challenging in recent times. She bought some goods on Friday and on Monday morning, shockingly, the prices have shot up.
I'm shocked at how prices of drinks keep increasing. Now, I have to go back home to re-strategize on how to top up. Otherwise, I can't stock up.
Though there are no open arguments in commercial vehicles, people are feeling the brunt of the increase. But of greater concern is how some people are taking advantage of the situation. Bus conductors are being blamed.
The mates are always pilfering from the sales of drivers despite paying them their wages.
But they deny the accusation. Samuel speaks for his colleagues.
Wafa saying wafa say one wafa na say
the chop on the 20 and I said 10 billion. Not to say 30, 40.
Drivers are also feeling the pinch.
First man and why does Intramegas say man I say it's first when started to say 2010 11 one but
business has gone bad recently. It is hard to make sales and even save. These days, it is hard for drivers to make a living, let alone make investments.
Your minimum wage be hand to mouth. The government know the pay for month. From the same pay
the unpredictable nature of fuel prices is causing anxiety among the masses, and they want the government to find ways of cushioning them.
Now, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, predicts that from 1st March, fuel prices will increase, and that's today. COPEC predictions are as follows. Petrol is around 8.125 Ghana cedis per litre, and that is to increase by about 4.6%. And diesel around 8.225 Ghana cedis per litre, and to increase about 3.4%. Now, with an average for the two to hover around 8.190 Ghana cedis per litre, that's a change by 3.43%. Now, for LPG, it's predicted to sell around 9.163 Ghana cedis per kg, to be increased by about 2.5%. Well, all things being equal, so shall the fuel prices be in the window for 1st of March 2022. Now, Duncan Amwa is the Executive Secretary of COPEC, and he joins me now. Mr. Amwa, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Amwa, if you can hear me, what are you basing the prediction on?
Well, you have two things contributing to where we are getting to. I say this because the pumps are here to adjust, but eventually the adjustments would manifest in the course of day. What you have now is a very wobbly currency. What rate you got yesterday, you will be lucky to get it the next day. So the cedi has depreciated quite badly over the period. Again, due to geopolitical tension and development, you also have prices for crude having shot up over the period, and that has also affected prices of finished products. I'm talking of petrol, diesel, and in this instance, what is even more worrying, LPG, which would serve as a source of fuel fire, is also going up significantly. So the cedi, international market prices, contributing to these increases that we are expecting today, tomorrow.
All right. Now, so what should government do to minimize the impact on the public?
I listened to the report by Mamesi, and clearly people are really struggling to get by. At old, pump prices, things are getting really heated for people. And if we continue to sit unconcerned and allow these increases to come in, week out, eventually it will get to a point where a lot of people would simply not be able to afford to live. That would probably be quite dire. And we think that authorities have been given enough solutions. We recall writing to the Finance Ministry prior to the 2022 budget reading and presentation the need to ensure that these escalations at the pumps is contained. How do you contain it? Part of the revenue you are getting as an oil-producing country, you should use some to offset the increases at the BDC level in order that the BDCs do not go to import and simply pass on the increases that they are also recording on the international market. The solutions are well known, well documented. Unfortunately, authorities seem to have just paid a deaf ear and a blind eye to all of this, and that brings us to where we are.
All right, thank you very much. That is Duncan Amwa, who's the Executive Secretary of COPEC. But still on living standards, a union that has weighed into this conversation is the Teachers Union. And they write, in the face of the raging economic problems in the country, teacher unions call for the cost of living allowance for teachers and educational workers. And the statement reads, in recent times, Ghanaians have been expressing incessant fuel increases, normally without advance notice. Electricity is having its equal share of astronomical increases, while prices of foodstuff and other consumables keep skyrocketing, all to the detriment of a helpless citizenry. The teacher unions recognize the economic challenges facing our members, which are the teachers, like all other public sector workers. Despite the fact that their take-home pay does not really take them home, they continue to give off their best to Ghanaian children. I just want to repeat that. Despite the fact that their take-home pay does not really take them home, they continue to give off their best to Ghanaian children, and we salute them for that. We go further hereby to demand that government institutes a cost of living allowance, COLA, for them to supplement their salaries, to pull them out of the economic woods in which they find themselves currently. And it was signed by General Secretary, the President of NAGRAT, also President of CCTGH. Later in our bulletin, we'll be talking to Nagrat and Nata on that press release. But let's do some Ghana Month, because this week, beginning our Ghana Month, is a series of stories themed around lesser-known Ghanaian language. The Ahanta language, spoken in the Western region, is one of the languages identified as one at risk of extinction, as many are unable to write or speak it. Through songs, a group is trying to keep the languages in the minds and on the lips of people, especially those within the area. And the first of our series of stories celebrating Ghana Month, JoyNews' Justice Baidu traveled to Takoradi to meet the people behind the choir.
This choir is trying to keep a language that is on the brink of death alive. The Apua Youth Choir, founded by young men and women in this community just on the outskirts of Takoradi. This song they are rehearsing in the Ahanta language means God is the only one we know, and He is all we have.
Growing up in the locality, seeing my people or the grown-ups speaking Ahanta, it was great. Our children are speaking English more now than it was yesterday.
My name is Felix Kofieli. I am the Executive Director of the Apua Youth Choir.
Felix and his friends write new songs themselves and also translate songs from other languages into Ahanta for the choristers to learn.
Because people don't really know that Takoradi is Ahanta, we intend not to use the deepest version of Ahanta, but use what we normally call the Ahanta Fante. So that is the first trick, to try to use the Ahanta Fante language to try to form something which people in Takoradi or its environs can easily relate to. That will gradually bring the interest.
We were not taught Ahanta when we were kids. So, especially when you get the language, you want to turn them up into the language itself. It's quite difficult.
Portia Amwa is originally not Ahanta, but has lived in this community for 29 years. She was part of the people who started this choir, and through rehearsals like this, now speaks and understands the language.
Though we are in Ahanta, but we don't learn the Ahanta. We learn Fancy. So I don't know even the alphabet of the... I didn't know then. But when I came to AYC, they've been teaching us because of the song.
It's a Sunday, and like every other Sunday, Apua Youth Choir performs at one church or the other, serenading worshippers in the language of their birth. The Ahanta language, pronounced originally as Ayenda, is spoken by the Ahanta people who occupy the land in between the Proa and the Ankobra rivers, including Sekendi Takoradi, the Western Regional Capital. They are bordered by the Nzima, Wasa, and Fanti people to the west, north, and east, respectively.
We can't preach nor become a minister, but through the music that we sing, we can sell our language far. You can love a song, not necessarily understanding the words in them, but the rhythm and the composition itself will make you love to sing that song. I remember songs like Me Dark Way Nama. We do sing those songs in church, but we don't understand. So if we are able to sing with Ahanta, we can penetrate the world with the language, and people will love it. Especially our own people will love that. Hey, people are speaking or singing in my own language. Then I don't have to hide.
Like many of Ghana's lesser-known languages, Ahanta is not taught in schools. The young men and women behind the square hope that their little efforts here would help change that. Justice Baidu, JoyNews, Abua, in the Western region.
You're still watching JoyNews Desk with me, Mapisa CBD. After the break, I tell you about a popular staple in most homes, which is bread. You don't want to miss it. You're welcome back. Now, bread, a popular staple in most homes, has always been traditionally made from wheat flour. How about resorting to other flour sources for bread like cassava flour, and can there be any health benefits? Well, a research conducted by the Food Science and Technology Department at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has revealed cassava flour used as bread composite could potentially maintain optimum blood sugar levels. Emmanuel Bright Kweku of our science desk has more.
A typical breakfast in any Ghanaian home will always have it as the main or complementary carbohydrate source in a meal. A freshly baked bread is best accompanied with beverages like hot chocolate drink, porridges, and sometimes made into omelette toast. Despite bread's nutritional value, its high glycemic index is becoming a worry for many.
High glycemic index foods usually will release sugar into the blood very fast or at a faster rate when consumed as compared to those that are low glycemic index. And people like athletes, for instance, would want high glycemic index foods because they need the energy very quick. But the research has shown that if you consistently take in low glycemic index foods, you stand a chance of living longer, healthier, because high glycemic index foods have been implicated in cardiovascular diseases.
Recent research has revealed incorporating cassava flour as an ingredient for bread could be a game changer in the baking and farming industries. Cassava flour is simply unfermented cassava processed through the milling of dried cassava tubers.
Already, research has shown that our root and tubers could be converted to quality flours that could be incorporated in products that we usually use wheat for. So we had an earlier study that showed that when you add up to 20% high quality cassava flour to wheat, you can make quality bread similar to 100% wheat. So that was on the recipe. And this recipe has been developed, and we thought it has a lot of benefits.
Consumers were like, cassava is supposed to be starchy and it might have the potential to even be high glycemic index food. So we had to check as scientists. So we did the substitution, and then we invited them participants, and then we recruited them. We checked their blood sugar levels, and they had to be normal, of good health. And then we conducted their tests. So we fed them, on certain days we fed them the bread with water, and then we were measuring their blood glucose levels, and at 15-minute intervals for the first hour and 30-minute intervals for the second hour. And then we did some analysis. And then we realized that the more you increase the substitution of cassava flour in bread, the lower the glycemic index becomes. So there was a direct relationship between substituting the cassava flour and the glycemic index of the bread in the consumer.
The food researchers confirm bread made from high-quality cassava flour will improve cassava value chain and ultimately better the economic livelihoods of rural farmers.
But then we wanted to know what are the other advantages. Of course, we know it will, if we are to implement it, it will create jobs because more facilities are going to be established to process this cassava into high-quality cassava flour, and then we are going to get more money for farmers, and then it's going to create jobs along the value chain of cassava.
Emmanuel Bright-Kweku reporting.
You're still watching Joy News Desk. Up next is business.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. The Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund says it has so far invested $290 million in 12 projects across 7 sectors of the economy over the last 4 years. According to its chief executive, Solomon Asamoah, government through the fund would seek to address the infrastructure deficit by creating a permanent capital investment vehicle. Speaking at a workshop organized on green building practices, he said his outfit will adopt climate-friendly policies. Gave the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund seed funding of $325 million with a mandate to identify, invest and manage investments in a diversified portfolio of infrastructure assets in the country for national development. Chief Executive Solomon Asamoah says the fund continues to invest in infrastructure across the country.
We have to date, over the last 4 to 5 years, invested some $290 million. And we have about 12 projects under our portfolio. Projects which include financing the new Airport Terminal 3. We are trying to make sure that Ghana's infrastructure improves. And we're also trying to make sure that Ghanaian entrepreneurs and Ghanaian sponsors benefit from the investments that we do. We also need to make sure that all of our projects are climate friendly, are sustainable, and do not damage the environment. To continue to do what we've done over the last 4 or 5 years, which is identify new opportunities, new projects that needs to be done. For example, at the moment, there's a silent crisis going on in terms of university student accommodation. We are looking closely to make a major intervention in university student accommodation area.
The Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund is collaborating with the International Finance Corporation and the World Bank Group on accelerating the adoption of green building practices through promotion of voluntary green building certification programs based on the EDGE software, standard and certification system. Here's project lead for Kenya, Nigeria and Ghana, Dennis Kwanzaa.
GIF now is going to ensure that all projects that they finance is going to be certified green. So if they are working with a developer, they are going to make sure the project is going to be green, and then we will come in to support that developer to provide them with the necessary training, the necessary guidance to get the project to be certified green. And even after it's certified green, we still work with that project to provide them with some marketing support and then business development for the company itself, because we would want to ensure that they get, apart from the direct monetary benefits they are getting, they should also get some indirect support from us.
Meanwhile, Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Samuel Amegaibo, says members of the association have not fully adopted green construction.
Over here in Ghana, we haven't embraced it fully. There are several contributing factors to that, and especially with residential building development, which is where my people are. The problem has always been with costs. So I remember Energy Commission had a discussion with us some time ago to see how best residential properties can adopt green. And it has always been the issue of cost, because the analysis was that a typical residential building would need additional 10% of the unit cost to get into green. People are still looking out for other incentives that will make it more attractive for people to sign on. So for Ghana, it is cost. But if you look at the technology, it has a long-term benefit, which people must appreciate.
In other news, the Ghana cedi has been classified as the worst of African currencies with the worst spot returns tracked by Bloomberg. This follows a depreciation of 8.86% to the US dollar. Charles Nixon looks at the continent's currencies with best spot returns and the worst in this report.
Among the currencies classified as having the worst spot returns, the Ghana cedi is ranked at the bottom, depreciating by almost 9% from 1st January to 25th February this year. It's followed by the Zambian kwacha with a depreciation of 6.02%. These two economies have been battling with fiscal slippages, whilst their rising debts have created fears among investors regarding their economic outlook. Whereas Zambia agreed to an International Monetary Fund bailout of $1.4 billion in December last year for a crucial 3-year program to restructure its debt, Ghana is adamant in returning to the Bretton Woods institution for a similar program to build investor credibility. Despite crude oil selling above $100 per barrel, the foreign inflows from the commodities have done little to help stabilize the city. However, the 5-year $4.5 billion country partnership framework from the World Bank is expected to inject some dollars into the economy and help shore up the value of the city. Meanwhile, the Gambian Delasi, New Sudanese Pound, and the Ethiopian Birr are among African countries with the worst spot returns by Bloomberg. Angolan Kwanza, Namibian Dollar, and South African Rand are, however, among African countries with the best spot returns.
Reaction to this, Executive Director of the Center for Economics and Inequality Studies, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, says the current trend will cost the country more in terms of interest repayment on loans. He's, however, calling for Bank of Ghana's intervention to avert further worsening of the situation.
Our credit rating on the market now will not make it possible for us to contract these loans at the previous rate that we had there. It's going to be expensive. Expensive means that we have to pay more by way of interest servicing. That is what we are also trying to avoid currently. So we just have to hope and wait that the market will normalize a bit before we go onto the market to borrow.
Speaking about hope, you deal with the numbers. Looking at the crystal ball, where do you see the CD's performance in the medium to long term ending this year, considering what has happened in the very first 2 months of this year?
Yeah, for now, we have crossed the 7 mark on the retail market. And if you look at the difference in the interbank rates and what the Forex market is telling us, definitely we are going to end the year with the CD at more than $7 CDs to $1 US. Again, between now and December is such a long time that if you're able to get the injections from BOG, if you're able to get some support locally in terms of cleaning our books as a country, from where we are sitting, we believe that the speculative attack on the currency will be reduced a bit. Even though the cedi will depreciate, it will not be as fast and as high as it has been in the past 2 months. We are not going to see a slow pace. But as for the 7 cedis to $1, we still believe that come the year end, the cedi will be trading at that to the US dollar.
And that's it for business. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Up next is sports.
It's time for sports, and Twitter verified Muftau joins me in studio because he's wearing his Twitter verification tie today. You know this is your Twitter verification tie.
I never knew.
I'm telling you.
Thank you.
Because after you were verified, you came to studio the next day and you were wearing that. Okay. I remember. I pay attention to you.
Your memory is very good.
Thank you. So is yours. I'm learning from you.
Okay, let's talk about Russia. Let's talk about
What's happening in Russia?
Well, they have been expelled by FIFA. An indefinite suspension has been placed on Russia. They're doing the upcoming World Cup qualifiers that will be happening in March. Russia is not going to take part. Clubs that represent Russia in European football have also been expelled indefinitely. FIFA Executive Council arrived at a decision yesterday. They've been enormous pressure from the likes of Czech Republic, the likes of Poland, who are saying that they don't want to play in any competition that Russia is going to be involved. So FIFA had their hands twisted to arrive at a decision of expelling Russia. And it's a big, big call because currently what it means is that this was a country that hosted the 2018 FIFA World Cup. And they have built a certain relationship with FIFA. But we got to a point that even Gianni Infantino could not save them, despite his supposed relationship with Putin. Yeah. And Moscow, that has been in the Europa League, have been kicked out. And I see. Until something happens drastically, the next couple of weeks where the Europa League matches will be happening, They are not going to participate, and that is the story so far.
So where does this now the players? What does that mean for the players? Like what's the future?
What happened to Ghana football in 2018, following the number 12 by Ahanta announced? Yeah. At this point, you have a contractual agreement with clubs, and what it means is that the clubs, though you are not playing football, must still, under the contractual obligations they have towards you, they still must pay you.
Okay.
The bigger concern, however, is going to be whether the clubs would be adhering to all the clauses in the contracts, because there's something called force majeure, and when it's force majeure, it's always difficult for clubs and.
So what is force majeure?
The force majeure is something that happened. It is uncontrollable.
Okay.
It has happened in a way that neither the Football Union of Russia or the football clubs can handle it.
Yeah.
It just happens out of the blue. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, but some of these things, when they happen, and there are such contracts or such clauses within the contracts, let's say the clubs or the Football Association or whatever will arrive at a decision of not adhering to all the clauses that they've got in the contract. But I'm just certain that this will happen. But for the national team, I think the supporters who are going to be very disappointed. Yeah. People have been marching on the streets, protesting against the invasion of Ukraine. But a man says, I want to do what I want to do because I am your leader.
Okay. I want to do what I want to do because I'm your leader.
I'm your leader.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. My favorite Twitter verified sports presenter here on JoyNews.
Okay, then my new name is Twitter verified. So I'll prefer that to you.
Your favorite person?
Yeah.
Really? Are you serious? Hey, wow. Okay, that's fine. And that's
am I joking? No, am I joking? If I'm joking, let's laugh.
For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm a Peter CBD. Enjoy the rest of your day.